Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I mean business. Let's first of all give the staff here a terrific hand in Hoover Hall. What a great meal that was. I know a lot of you guys have not been in this room before. It is something else. Hogwarts, country club, whatever you want to call it. It's different than the hub down in the basement back in my day where you had a pork tenderloin hamburger or a small salad you could choose from. I am Ken Owen, class of 1982, and I'm delighted to be your MC this evening. It's a surreal thing, just seeing so many of you guys back. It's a tribute to the love you have for Nick, but the impact he had on all of our lives. I was a senior when Nick came to DePauw, and I was driving in on 240 today realizing that it was 40 years ago right now he was preparing for his first season at DePauw, having just been hired. And just to put that moment in perspective, it was a critical moment for the DePauw football program. When I arrived here in 1978, Tom Mont had been retired for about a year and a half, and Bob Bergman had been the coach. And Bob, I talked to Rob Doyle on the phone yesterday from class of 82, quarterback and Hall of Famer and great friend. We were talking about, Bergman was not much of an X's and O's guy, but he was a great recruiter. You look at Cathcart, Torkelson, Doyle, Perkins, all the guys that, came from that class of 81 were the work of Bob Bergman. So Bergman gets it after 2 years, he's gone, and they bring in a guy named Jerry Byrne, who goes 2-7 his first year, and DePauw football looks like it's still on the skids, only to turn around at 7-2 the next year. And a great year, a great season. Jerry was a young and energetic coach and went to the Ivy League. He goes to Penn. So all of a sudden we got an opening at DePauw University. And Robbie was telling me yesterday about the search and how he and Torque, and thank you Bob Torkelson for the wine too, Trinchero Family Estates. But Torque and Doyle were the co-captains, so they were brought into the search, and everybody they ran through had to meet with those two guys. And one of the candidates was John Gruden's dad, anecdotally. But Rob said that Nick came in, and the other guys were very kind of matter of fact. Well, I'll take on the program, and we'll have these kind of policies, and I like to run my offense this way and defense this way. Nick came in and was jumping around the room, had a magic marker at the board. Now look, Chief, we're going to get this guy out here. And drawing plays on the board. And both Torkelson and Doyle said they fell in love with the guy's energy. He was excited. He was genuine. He clearly cared. And it was not some act. Nick was never pretending. What you got from him in the moment was Nick. So I remember being a senior, and I didn't play football, played baseball my freshman year, but Nick was just this big Greek guy who just seemed over the top and always exuberant. And, you look at it at first, given where the program had been, and you think, that 81 Monon Bell, and getting to know Nick over the years, I can think of 2 times I saw Nick not positive. And, most people you can say, well, the guy had a really bad day or negative. I saw Nick the morning after the 86 Monon Bell game. Joe Dayon used to have a restaurant down at Union Station. 86 was the year that we couldn't get the field goal team on the field in time, if you remember. The clock ran out. And, sorry. There are many, many men, but I just remember Nick, who was always like, hey, Chief, how you doing? Just sitting there at breakfast, hours later, still going, hey, we practice that every day. I can't believe it. That was one time. The other time was, there's an unnamed athlete who went to school up north of here, where they wear red and have those silly overalls. And Nick thought he had this guy recruited, thought he had him in the bag. And whenever his name came up, and I'll tell you privately later, I'm not going to put it on a microphone, but Nick would just kind of turn pale and go, so they give the guy a Lilly scholarship. He starts going off on Lilly scholarship. I mean, he should be here. Those are the only 2 times I ever heard him say anything negative about anybody. But The joy for me was I graduated from DePauw in 81. Nick was still in my life. I was back for games. A lot of you guys are my friends, so we all were in the same circle. And then in 2001, I came back here to work. And I got to see an entirely different side of Nick. My offices, most of the time I was over there by the academic quad, but Nick would twice a week come to my office and just sit down and want to talk. And it's about the time I started to decide to go through the old films and make the Monon memories and save this history, which at the time seemed kind of, somebody's got to do it. And I just decided to do it in my spare time. I'm so glad you can go on YouTube now and see Nick and see the games, see the films, and, and that's not me, that's you. I mean, really. We share this history, and I think and Nick brought me a box of stuff one time, very excitedly, that he'd been carrying for a long time, including the WGRE broadcast on tape cassette, overmodulated as hell, of the 1981 Monon Bell game. And that's a pretty cool thing to have, because that was his first game, and obviously very special to him. So, yeah, he didn't get the Lilly Scholar, but he got a lot of guys, and a lot of great guys, and a lot of guys who have love for him and have taken a break in their summer to come back to Greencastle, Indiana in July to celebrate the spirit and life and positivity of Nick Mourouzis. And one of those guys is, back in '92, Don Popravac was part of this weekend. Don financed that great DePauw football documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing. It stops in 1992, unfortunately. But there's some great Nick footage. And they got Jeff Kay from NFL Films to narrate it. And he gave our first speaker a nickname, which I'm sure he never had before and probably hasn't had since, the Bishop of the Bomb. The NFL Films voice. Tony DeNicola, class of '86, was a 3-year starter at quarterback. He graduated as DePauw's all-time leader in touchdown passes. He had other records as well. Was one of DePauw's first management fellows, a finalist for the Rhodes Scholarship, summa cum laude graduate, one of the smartest guys DePauw has ever graduated, and I'm not just saying that, and it's true. He went on to earn a degree from Harvard Business School, served on DePauw's Board of Trustees, is now chairman of Welsh, Carson, Anderson & Stowe, a private investment firm in New York, managing over $28 billion in its various funds, serves on a number of public and private boards, as well as nonprofits, and is a founding board member of a charter school in the Bronx called Brilla College Prep, also a member of the DePauw Hall of Fame. Please welcome the Bishop of the Bomb, Tony DeNicola.
I don't know where that came from, but thanks, Ken, for the introduction. It's great to be here with so many friends, teammates, to honor Coach Nick, and I'm going to do the best that I can. So I'm truly humbled to speak this evening in honor of our dear friend and coach, Nick Mourouzis. While we're all still mourning his death, we are here tonight to celebrate his amazing life, his Hall of Fame life. To Marilyn, Ted and Susan, Pam and Matt, and his beloved grandchildren, Jack, Emma, Nick, and Isla, I offer my deepest condolences and prayers that you find peace and comfort in knowing that our beloved Nick was a man of deep faith, and he is surely in heaven with his Lord and Savior. As I prepared these remarks, I reflected on 40 years of memories of my life with Coach Nick. I'll touch briefly on his impact on my football life, but I want to focus more on his impact on my life after DePauw, and how Nick Mourouzis, as a man of faith and a family man, modeled for me. You guys got to stop crying right here. I'm not crying. You crying? You started it. What he modeled for me what I aspired to be as a person. While I never aspired to be a football coach, I admired him immensely, and I sought to emulate his commitment to his faith and to his family in my own life. In fact, last weekend I spoke to Ted, his son, about this, and then this morning I visited his gravesite, as many of you also did. The words inscribed on the front of his headstone convey exactly what Nick's life was all about. faith, family, friends, and football. What a beautiful, purposeful, impactful, and important life he led. And all of us are here to testify and commemorate and affirm that life. We each have our own special Coach Nick stories, but what is common is that he meant so much to each one of us and to so many others. I happen to know the exact date I first met Coach Nick. It was on Friday night, October 2nd in 1981, when my Albion High School football team beat Hillsdale 20-0. And the very next day, the DePauw Tigers beat Albion College 23-14. Coach Nick watched me play that Friday night. He spoke to my middle school coach, my high school coach, and then he spoke to me. That Friday night encounter, with the enthusiasm, passion, and love that Nick exuded, guaranteed that I was attending DePauw University to play football for Chief in his first recruiting class as head coach. It's really impossible to overstate how important Coach Nick was in my life. He introduced me to DePauw. He convinced me to attend our alma mater. He coached me for 4 years as a quarterback. He secured my academic path as one of the first participants in the new and innovative business program known as the Management Fellows, which in turn led to my first job at Goldman Sachs, which was the predicate for my admission to Harvard Business School. And that led to my 30-year career in international finance, running a major private equity firm on Wall Street. I first met Coach Nick about 14,500 days ago, and he positively impacted every day of my life since. Coach Nick was a father figure to me from the first day I stepped onto campus in August 1982 to begin two-a-day practices, and he continued to play a transformative role in my life for the next 40 years. The life lessons he imparted on me as a football coach, like many of you, have served me very well in my life and career after DePauw. He set a championship bar at DePauw, building a high-performance culture and creating a nationally ranked football program through his coaching philosophy, handed down via Ara Parsegian and the Cradle of Coaches. We all know it. Having a positive mental attitude about life. We all know that mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. Perseverance and working harder than everyone else. We never quit in the face of loss or failure. Taking pride in our work and how we do things the right way. Loving our teammates and always having their back. Living a life of character and integrity in every facet of your life, on and off the field, and so many other lessons. Since I left DePauw in 1986, I've tried to emulate Coach Nick and his championship standards in my own life. I've led my company with these principles and values for creating a high-performance culture. I've raised my kids in this mindset, and I've coached numerous youth teams using these same important lessons. Some say I'm old school, but we all know this is just how you do things if you played for Coach Nick and we're in his program. Like many of you, I played football for Coach Nick for only 4 seasons, but he's been involved in my life for 4 decades. Nick was Greek, and with my Italian heritage, that gave us a common Mediterranean perspective. We became family, and he loved family more than anything. And as family members do, we shared important milestones in life together. He and Marilyn celebrated with us for my graduation from DePauw. They attended my wedding. We visited when he traveled out east or whenever I came to Greencastle. He vacationed in our home in Florida, and he kept an eye on my oldest son, Ted, when he was at DePauw. My family and I joined Nick to celebrate his retirement from DePauw. I was honored to introduce him when he was awarded the Distinguished American Award from the National Football Foundation. I was privileged to be inducted into DePauw's Hall of Fame in the same class as Coach Nick, and I was honored to be part of the dedication ceremony for Nick Mourouzis Field in 2013. As all of you know, Nick loved to phone people, a holdover from his recruiting days, and he was outstanding at staying in touch. He often called me just to catch up. He always wanted to know about my family. He asked about my mom, my wife Christy, and our kids. And as you know, he never forgot a name, and he remembered important details from the prior conversation, and he would invariably ask to see how things worked out since we last spoke. I also saw Coach Nick beaming with pride whenever we discussed his family. He had a lifelong love affair with Marilyn, who supported him in all ways. He was extremely proud of Ted and Pam, and all of us know Pam could make some serious football plays. I'm not looking at you, Pam. But his 4 grandchildren were the apple of his eye, and he loved them dearly. I remember well getting a call from Nick when he learned that Jack was admitted to Dartmouth, and I spoke to him about how proud he was when Emma decided to go to IU, a place that he loved. Of course, young Nick attending DePauw and playing varsity soccer was certainly a source of great pride for the Chief, and he dearly loved young Isla and her passion for art and her zest for life. Coach Nick was a man of deep faith, and you could see that in everything he did. Even as a young college student, I knew that Coach Nick was manifestly spiritual. Coach Nick treated everyone with respect. He was kind, and he was a genuinely good man. One simple example I remember well is that he never cursed. In fact, he taught his players, and you can recite this, that cursing was a sign of a weak mind trying to express itself forcefully. Recently, I was binge watching the Netflix football series Last Chance U with Christy, and she was appalled by all the cursing from the head coach. She asked me if all coaches are that vulgar, and I proudly said, no, Coach Nick never cursed. I recall my own days on campus. As a student, I attended St. Paul's Catholic Church each week. I was impressed and even more convicted in my own faith because I could always see Coach Nick and Marilyn there, as well as our dear friend, Coach Rea, and of course, Ed and Marianne Meyer. For Coach Nick and Marilyn, their Greek Orthodox faith was and remained always a central part of their family and their lives. So it's fitting for me to end my remembrance of Coach Nick on this note. I'm forever grateful to him for his impact on my life and for modeling an ideal of being a family man and a man of faith that I've sought to live my life by. So in the Greek Orthodox faith tradition, it's customary in prayer to seek the Blessed Mother's intercession to her son for one who has died. For our beloved Nick, I pray, eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord. And may his memory be eternal. Amen. We love you, Coach.
Thank you, Tony. I don't know if you guys feel this way. I sense him at least once a day in my life. I mean, the eyes looking into my eyes, that smile, that knowing glance. I mean, he's around still, and he's informed us all. It's beautiful. Our next speaker is Jeff Forrest, class of 1990. He has been the head football coach at Butler University for 15 seasons and is third on Butler's all-time coaching list for victories and is the only head coach in school history to lead the Bulldogs to a postseason win. He was previously head coach at Carroll College. He was an assistant at Edinburgh, DePauw, Texas, and Illinois. Jeff was another stud quarterback at DePauw, 4-year starter, earning All-America recognition in '88 and '89. He still holds DePauw's career football records for most passing yards. Bill Wagner can shake his head if he's wrong, but I found that online, so it's got to be right. These things change. We know the game has changed. Most touchdown passes, most pass completions, most pass attempts, and total offense. Anyway, thrilled to welcome to the stage Jeff Forrest to talk about our friend, the Chief.
Wow. Well, you guys are going to have to bear with me here, Chief. I thought I could do this. Well, hopefully I can get it done here. I'm glad I wrote it all out now. So if I can't finish, hopefully one of you guys will come up here and grab the notes. But old Coach Nick, where do you start? How do you tell the story of a man that coached, taught, mentored, befriended, changed the lives of so many, many people? And try to do that to a room of people that have their own stories of Coach Nick and how how he affected and impacted their families. And to do it all in a short period of time, you're certainly going to leave out a lot of the story. But if you're going to do it, he'd want you to do it with your head and your heart and show a little tiger pride, baby. Like most of you, I remember the first time I met Coach Nick. I knew very little about DePauw. I knew absolutely nothing about Amona and Bell. I was transferring schools after a coaching change, and the old offensive line coach called me in the dorm and asked if I was going to leave. And he had coached with Coach Nick at Northwestern. Now I have no idea if that was staff 1 or 2, because we all know, baby, I was hired and fired twice at Northwestern. Well, anyway, Coach Mitz said, if you are going to leave, I know the school and the man you need to go play for. So Dad and I set up a visit. We rolled into town. We got to Lilly Center, and we were whisked away in Coach Nick's car on one of those classic $5 campus tours that he loved to give. We eventually ended up back in his office, where he proceeded to start doing 3-step drops in that little corner office and going into describing in detail the science of quarterback play. I won't bore you with any of those details, but my dad was sold on the school, and now he was sold on the coach. But Coach Nick wasn't a salesman. He was a people person. He loved people. He invested in relationships. The guy had it. Every once in a while you meet someone that's just wired differently. He had a childhood enthusiasm. He truly believed that nothing was going to be achieved without that enthusiasm. And his enthusiasm was contagious. He cast a positive attitude. He was no Otis Elevator. He was in the penthouse all day long. He truly believed in a positive mental attitude. Now, he'd get frustrated, and every once in a while, he'd drop a fiddlesticks, Chief. But that elevator never left the penthouse. Never left the penthouse. The other thing that was impressive about the Chief was there was never a job too small or too big for him to take on. I never saw him walk past a piece of trash on the ground without picking it up. The number of jobs he did over a year where coaches today make a call to get done, that list is impressive and certainly long. But to him, that was Tiger Pride. It was his program, and he was going to take great pride in every detail. He was always the first in line to help. He never wanted anything in return. Julie and I had returned to Greencastle. We were coaching one morning. I remember this very well. I called and said, Chief, I'm going to be late. Our hot water's out. I got to call someone to come look at this. He came right over. And our hot water heater was in the garage, and he figured out pretty quickly, hey, guy, your pilot light's out, your garage door going up and down, and he figured it out pretty quickly. But then he proceeded not to fix it, but to teach me on how to fix it. And we went through every step in detail. We talked safety, he quizzed me on everything. I have no idea when we got to the office that day, but his tutorial was one step short of teaching me how to actually build a water heater. I mean, and it was also, I could do it myself the next time. You know, he was always teaching. And he was naturally curious, a lifelong learner who enjoyed a good project, even invent a new method to do something. It was my first year out of DePauw, and I was coaching as a graduate assistant at the University of Illinois for John Makovic. And Coach came over to sit in on meetings and watch practice. And at the conclusion of practice, Coach Makovic started into a talk on preparation and leaving no stone unturned when, out of the blue, he introduced Coach Nick to the entire team. Now, granted, Coach Nick had wandered his way into the team huddle, like he was in the middle of every drill all day long. I mean, he was at practice. I mean, he was going to be at practice. And Coach Makovic talked about the Miami Cradle of Coaches and the '67 Rose Bowl team. He eventually said, "Hey, Coach, how long have you been coaching?" And at this point, it was about 30 years. And I remember this today. Coach Mack said to the team, he said, "Guys, here's a head college football coach, a 30-year veteran of college football, and he's been here all day taking notes on that yellow legal pad." And that was Coach Nick. He truly believed that it's what you learned when you thought you knew it all that made the difference. And you know, I always knew that we were all extremely lucky to have had Coach Nick as our coach, but that day, it really hit home how admired and connected he was in the coaching profession. When I showed up in Greencastle in '86, you know, little did I know how my life would change. My family's life would be impacted over the next 35 years because of one man. At 19, I had no idea I'd signed up for a master class in the game of life, but from August powertrains to Monon Bell senior talks, year after year after year, football became our number one internship. As passionate as he was about the game, baby, you can't be pushed or pulled. It's got to come from within. It is as competitive as he was about winning. College football's fun, Chief, but it's more fun to win. And as committed as he was to taking no prisoners on the second week in November, you gotta have the eye of the tiger, Chief. He was just as invested in the success of each of us upon graduation. He's literally had a hand in helping me get every job I've had in coaching. And really the one that sticks out the most was the one that took me out of Greencastle. You know, we sat down and he said, "Chief, this is a great opportunity. You gotta go. It's time for you to go and challenge yourself and grow." And he very easily could have said, "Chief, you need to stay," and probably would have stayed, you know, but he saw the opportunity for our family. And the other thing is it gave him a great opportunity to mentor the next great young coach on his coaching tree. And that's the thing, as good a teacher as he was for his students, as good a coach as he was for all of us, he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable at mentoring young coaches. This is where it's going to get a little harder. And with that said, the thing I'm most grateful for is that Coach Nick and Marilyn were unbelievable at mentoring young coaching families. Our three daughters grew to absolutely love Coach Nick and Yaya, as they call Marilyn. The way I understand it, that's Greek for grandma, right? But that's the way our daughters see her. And our oldest daughter still talks about the rocking horse Coach Nick made by hand for her birthday. Wooden rocking horse, beautiful rocking horse. Coach Nick made it by hand, gave it to her for her birthday. And Marilyn named the horse Pippin because our dog was named Jordan. She said if we had a Jordan, we needed a Pippin. And girls still talk about it today. Now, our Jordan-Pippen combination didn't win 6 championships, but Coach Nick and Marilyn created many, many more championship-like moments for coaching families over the years. And our youngest was born after we had left DePauw. We'd taken a job at Butler, and her school was having their annual Grandparents' Day breakfast. Both of her sisters had done the Grandparents' Day breakfast, and now it was her turn, and her grandparents couldn't go. Her reply was, do you think Coach Nick and Yaya could come? Needless to say, Coach Nick and Yaya took our granddaughter to Grandparents' Day. From us visiting in their living room at DePauw and other random occasions to them doing the same years later in our living room after a Butler game or one of our girls' graduations, Nick, Marilyn, and their entire family have been a part of our family. And we truly appreciate them. We truly appreciate them letting all of us be a part of that, your family. No question, Chief, we miss you. Thank you for the education. Thank you for the memories. And thank you for teaching us to go for it, Chief. I love you, Chief.
Thank you, Jeff Forrest, for everything. These tributes are wonderful. And as I was listening, I'd be remiss if I didn't say tonight, because we're all here as DePauw people, but DePauw and Greencastle have an interesting relationship at times. But Nick was like the mayor of this town. And not only was he loved in this room and by all of us who were black and gold, but he could walk into Dick's Barber Shop, as he often did, or Moore's Bar, as he often did, and everybody knew his name, everybody smiled at his presence. If we live in a partisan America, there was no partisanship in Nick's world. I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about everybody loved him. There was no dividing line. And I think that needs to be said, because I know he has a lot of friends in the community that miss him and would probably like to be here tonight, but he was a big part of Greencastle, coaching kids, being there for them. His heart was huge. Next up, we have Jeff McMartin. He's the head football coach at Central College in Pella, Iowa. He's had that post for 18 years, seems like yesterday. Has led his team to 5 playoff appearances, and he has a 75% winning percentage, the best among active D3 coaches. He's a member of the Board of Trustees of the American Football Colleges Association, one of 2 D3 coaches on that board. Jeff served as the offensive coordinator for the final 4 years of Nick's head coaching career here at DePauw. He's also coached at Wake Forest, Illinois Wesleyan, the University of Rochester, and Beloit College. Please welcome Jeff McMartin.
First of all, I just have to say I was really hoping the first 2 guys wouldn't cry. So then I wouldn't, now I feel bad too. I already felt bad and was hoping I wouldn't do that. And you're going to have to probably bear with me as well. So I just forewarning you all. But I certainly appreciate the remarks made by both JV and Tony. Just wonderful. Awesome to hear. I want to thank the Mourouzis family. I want to thank the committee, and I'd also like to thank DePauw University for putting this entire day together, this entire weekend together. It took a lot of work, and it was not easily done, and we are all the benefits of their hard work. So I want to thank all of them, and to those of you that were a part of this. And I also appreciate the fact and the opportunity to be here, because this is what football and life really is all about. It's about the connections. It's about family. It's about a brotherhood, something very special. And you guys, all of you that have played here at DePauw and gone to school here, have something really special. I've had the opportunity to coach at a number of different schools, and the 4 years that I spent here were truly amazing. And they were amazing, obviously, because of Coach Nick, but also because of the great connection that all of you guys have and the tradition and history that is DePauw University. It's truly a special place. In December of this year, I was cleaning out my inbox of my emails and kind of going through them all and deleting as many as I possibly could. It's an irritating thing that I'm sure all of you have to do quite often. And I got towards the end of my day of deleting inbox emails, and I stumbled upon one that said something like, never have to worry about a New Year's resolution again. And I was like, whoa, and that was kind of interesting because I'm terrible at New Year's resolutions. And so it sparked my interest. And like I say, normally I'm deleting away, I get to this one and I'm like, what is this? So I started reading, and the whole concept was, it was this author, John Gordon, and he had a book called One Word. And he was talking about the fact that if you have one word as opposed to a bunch of New Year's resolutions, you can kind of use that as a guide. It's kind of a way of kind of thinking about how to live your life, or how to live your year, how to live your week, and kind of evaluate things. And so I started doing that. And then kind of fast forwarding, I was asked to speak at this event. And so I kind of took that same concept in mind of thinking about one word that would represent Coach Nick, and that would allow me to best describe him in my eyes. I had a unique seat at the table. I did not go to DePauw, and I kind of came into Coach Nick's world towards the end of his coaching career. And I had to follow JV, who had done an awesome job as an offensive coordinator. So there was a lot of, I guess, internal pressure for me kind of coming into this situation. Following JV, working with Coach Nick, being a part of this program, first-time offensive coordinator. There's a lot of things going on there. And I certainly appreciated and valued this opportunity. And when I think about kind of going through that process, and I think about what he meant to me and what I observed him meaning to all of you and to this community, the one word that I've selected to kind of best describe Coach Nick is the word love. When I think about what love looks like and what love feels like and what love sounds like, I think of Coach Nick. He had the best smile in the world. And there was not anyone that I have learned about love more than from Coach Nick. And this extremely special man was loved and loved everyone in his path. He was passionate about so many things. He found joy in the little details of life. I don't know anyone who's found more four-leaf clovers than Nick Mourouzis. Like the first day of practice, we walking out behind the stadium, and he reaches down thinking, okay, he's going to pick up some grass and then start chewing on it like some other coach or whatever. And he's like, look, Chief, baby, I just found another four-leaf clover. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Like, that's the first one I've ever seen in my whole life. He's got like a whole book of 400 back home. Like, it's unbelievable. He loved to work around the house. He loved doing projects. He did it with enthusiasm. In fact, he loved working around the project so much. I mean, he as a first-time homeowner here in Greencastle, he kind of taught me all about it. In fact, one time I was doing a camp in Worcester, Ohio, at the College of Worcester, and I get a phone call, and it's Coach Nick. He's like, hey, baby, I hear you're at Worcester, Ohio. I'm doing a camp. I'm like, yeah. He's like, hey, they got a great brush company in Worcester, Ohio. He said, do you think you could pick me up some paintbrushes while you're there? So I'm like driving down the road trying to find the Worcester Brush Company, and I did. And I brought those things back. It was like I was giving like the greatest Christmas present ever. Like, yeah, I found your paintbrushes, Chief. He loved working around the house. He loved helping others. I cannot tell you, we had the pleasure of living just down the street from Coach Nick. I can't tell you how many times I would come home at night, and my wife would tell me, you're never going to believe this, but Coach Nick stopped by, and he cleaned all the leaves out of the gutter again. Now, that's a great thing, but it also puts a lot of pressure on me. I'm like, yeah, killer. But he loved to do that for people. He loved to help wherever he could. He loved competition. Was there anybody that relished it more? And it didn't matter if it was a football game against Wabash or playing golf or just seeing who could shoot the most free throws. He loved to compete. He loved playing golf. He loved music. He loved to dance. I remember one time we had a game over fall break, and he felt bad that all the students were around and everything. He got a band and brought them into Greencastle, and we had a dance with a live band here on campus during the season. I mean, who does that? That's amazing. But he loved it, and that's just how he lived his life. He loved to laugh, and he loved to smile. But here are the things that I think that he loved the most. He loved his family. You know, a lot of times I'm reminded that people would rather see a sermon than hear one. And you saw how much he loved his family on a daily basis. It was how he walked the walk. He loved Marilyn, Ted, Susan, Pam, Matt, all of his grandkids. It was evident in his daily walk, what he did. We were able to see it every day. He loved the Greencastle community. In fact, he stayed here after retirement. He could have moved anywhere in the country, and he chose this place to be his home. And he was a fixture in the community. And that's truly special too. In the coaching world, you don't see that. You don't see a coach stay at one place that long, and then oftentimes when they retire, you don't see him stick around, and he did. He stayed. This was home, a place that he loved. He loved DePauw. When you heard him talk to a recruit, or when he talked to a current player or an alum, you could sense how much he loved this place. In fact, when I would listen to him talk to recruits, I wanted to go to DePauw. I was like, sign me up, Chief, you know? I was working for him at the time. This was a special place to him, and it remained that way up until his passing. He loved the game of football. He loved the strategy of it. He loved teaching the technique. He loved the team building. He loved every aspect of the game. In football, and like a lot of other occupations, you have to invest a lot of time if you really want to be great at it. It's not something you just kind of do part-time. And Coach was willing and loved that investment. He loved the investment of time. He loved the strategy of watching the film. Matt talked about it earlier, about the film sessions, and it was something that he truly enjoyed. And he made you enjoy it too. He loved his players and his assistant coaches. So all of you, not only did you feel it, but he actually told you that he loved you. In fact, he not only would say it to you, he would do other things that were very endearing, like calling everybody Chief. I'll tell you one quick story. So on my job interview at DePauw, I drive into town. The first person I meet with, obviously, is Coach Nick. He greets me, and within 30 seconds, he starts calling me Chief. And I'm thinking, hey, I've never been a chief before. This must be like a good sign in my interview, like, it's going good for me. He's already calling me chief, like, I must know some football or something. And he's talking to me chief, and then the next thing you know, we start walking down the hallway, and he calls the next person chief, and then he calls the next. And pretty soon, those people are calling each other chief, like the secretary's calling some other coach a chief, it's just Chief Fest all of a sudden. I'm like, my God, I thought it was me, and it's not. It's everybody's a chief. And they're calling him chief too. Fortunately, Matt McPherson and Matt Walker took me to lunch. So they kind of whisked me away, and then they explained to me the whole hierarchy of the chief. What the chief was, how the chief did it, who were the real chiefs and who weren't the real chiefs. He's the only guy I know. We could sit in a staff and be watching film, and he'd call us each chief, and we knew which chief he was talking to. And you get the, chief, and then you get the chief, and then you get the chief, and you knew that you had to move fast on that one. If he double chiefed you, you were in big trouble. So we got all the chiefs. And I want you to know that every kid on my football team in Pella, Iowa gets called chief. Every coach that I work with gets called chief. And when I come back to Greencastle, I want to call everybody chief, because chief is what it's all about. That's a way that I really feel he showed love. But it wasn't just the chief. It was the things that he did for all of us. My wife and I, he brought us into this family. Lori and I feel very much a part of the DePauw family, even though we didn't go here. And I owe that to Coach Nick. We owe that to Coach Nick. He made us all feel part of it. I don't remember ever a time not ending a phone conversation or a time where we went to his house to watch a game or just hang out or be together. I don't remember a time ever where he didn't say, "I love you." And I don't remember a time that I never said it back. What a gift. In fact, the last time I talked to Coach Nick, 2 days before he passed away, those were the last things that we said to each other. Who in the world, think of all of your jobs, all the people that you men work with, how many times do you tell your employees that you love them? And how many times do they tell you? That just doesn't happen. That's special. That's who he was. That's what it's all about. And you know, the cool thing was, when he told me that he loved me, I knew that he meant it. And I sure meant it to him. And the cool thing was, I'm not anybody special. He loved all of us. He said it to everyone. He said it to you guys, just like he said it to me. That's what love is. He loved us all. I'm grateful for the time that we got to spend together, both on the field and off. He was really like a father to me. In fact, both of our daughters were born here, and he was able to see our daughters in the hospital before my own parents were. It's the truth. That's just how he was. He became my second dad. I'm a better father, I'm a better husband, I'm a better coach, and I'm a better friend because of Coach Nick. I consider myself to be lucky to have served as an assistant coach at DePauw and to serve for Coach Nick. He taught me more about the game of football than any other coach that I've ever worked for. But more importantly, he taught me how to treat people. I learned about love. All of us are going to continue to be impacted by Coach Nick's legacy. He changed our lives for the better. As we move forward from this day, I encourage all of you, in whatever way you are most impacted by him, to think about Coach Nick and think about what word or what action comes to mind. Go out and live the example that he set for all of us. This world will be a happier, more successful, and more caring place. It'll be a world that was filled with love. Thank you very much.
You know, you brought to mind something about Nick that I loved, and that is, and there were many, many things, but it is so easy to be dragged into a negative conversation in life. And I can remember talking to Nick on days that were tough. And you'd start talking about something or someone, and his response would always be, he'd smile and go, "I don't know, Chief." You know, and that was his way of saying, "I feel for you, I love you, but I'm not going in the trenches." And I spent a lot of time thinking, you know, about just Nick's attitude, because that's so special. Once you get down in that subterranean stuff, you know, it's hard to come back out. And he never let himself. Great life lesson. Thank you, Jeff. Bill Wagner is up next. Bill is Director of Athletics Communications and the Assistant Athletics Director for Athletics Communication. He has served DePauw for 33 years with distinction. He's responsible for external communications and publicity for all 23 of the university's intercollegiate teams, and for a long, long time, probably even when we had 23, but certainly when we had 21, he was doing it by himself, which is crazy. And he's damn good at it. He also oversees the athletic social media platforms and the content on DePauwTigers.com. And Stevie, is the mic better in terms of is it still making the noise? Better, okay. Bill has served as the host media coordinator for over 30 NCAA events, including the 2001 Division III Men's Tennis Championships and the 03 and 10 D3 Indoor Track and Field Championships. And that's invaluable stuff because we get people from all kinds of schools. I remember Miles Brand walking through the place one time, and Bill is often almost always the host, along with Stevie, making sure that they leave with a good impression about DePauw. A member of the College Sports Information Directors of America, Bill served on the National Organization's Board of Directors from 05 to 08. In 2008, he became the first president of D3 SIDA. In 2014, Bill was inducted into the Co-SIDA Hall of Fame. And just as a personal, I have a lot of takeaways from the 19 years I worked at DePauw and the lifetime I've spent around this place. There is no greater champion of DePauw University than Bill Wagner. And the sports record keeping he does, the way he keeps things in front of us, it's great for recruitment, it's great for our spirits. The things we did when we were students and athletes here are meaningful, and they remain meaningful because of the work of Bill Wagner. Please welcome to the stage.
This was about at the time of the DePauw Tiger football banquet that Chief would ask everybody to stand up and stretch, which meant we were in for about another 2 hours. So I will not do that. Thanks to all the presenters. This is really a wonderful night. Ken, there was one other time I remember him being a little negative with me. It was Bell Week, and I forgot to wear the pin into the office. It was not pretty at all. But it was what a sign of his love for the rivalry. I'm honored and humbled to be here tonight. It's really a special event, and thanks to everyone who made it possible. And Pam and Ted and families, thank you for sharing your dad with us. He was a father to many of us. And Marilyn, I know that the praise that we're giving Nick is directed your way too. Absolutely. The two of you were a team. Now, I will say that I tried one of Nick's phrases out at home, and I either delivered it incorrectly or my timing was off or something, but he used to say, "We've been married for 40 years, but I'm gone so much, it only seems like 20. Yeah. So God bless you, Marilyn. Thanks for being rock solid and for always being there for the Tiger family and being a family for us in Greencastle. Thank you. To all the players out there, this is full of memories for all of us as we share our stories. I know you all love Nick, and you need to know how much he loved all of you. I mean, how proud he was of your accomplishments beyond the law. And he shared those all the time in the office and beyond his retirement. He was so proud of everything that you guys accomplished. As he was to many of you, Nick was a father, like a father to me. My own father passed away my second year at DePauw, and Nick and Marilyn were there for me. That's what great people do. When it was time to pick a best man at my wedding, I picked the best man, and Nick was there for me. Now, we were over in the ballroom, and I couldn't hear everything real well, and he delivered a toast. And I'm not sure exactly what was said, but I do know that he had the entire ballroom in stitches, so I think it was a good typical Nick Mourouzis story that he was telling. And Ted, I did steal that best man idea from your college. I came here as a 23-year-old with limited experience from Miami, Ohio State, and to be honest, this position was not very attractive, and it was my foot in the door. My plans were to probably make this a one-year stop and move on to some bigger and better things. And when you're in a support role like Rex and I were, it's much of your success and your happiness is dependent upon the relationship that you have with a football coach. And I was blessed. Nick Mourouzis was big time. and he treated us like we were big time, and he treated what we were doing like it was big time. The big time was where we were, and I have him to thank for being here for so many years. Recently, my wife asked what the most important or most impactful things that Nick has ever said to me. And a lot of things started flying through my head. Tiger Pride, baby, PMA, Otis Elevator, the same thing. Swearing, feeble mind, just things were flying back. And it's when you're golfing, put a sheet of bounce in your back pocket to keep the mosquitoes away. Yeah, Nick could have very crossed. But since last September, I don't know that there was a day where I didn't reflect on what he meant to me, or how something that he shared with me had relevance in my life. It's just a simple thing. Earlier this week, I'm just playing a miniature golf game with my kids and showing them how to hold a putter, and all of a sudden I'm taken back to 25 years ago when Nick took me out to lunch at the driving range, and we just had an hour lesson. It was one lesson. But he was such a good teacher that it lasted forever. And that's all I'm not a very good golfer, but it's not because of Nick Mourouzis' 1 hour lesson. But that's the kind of teacher he was, the impact he had. Another day I woke up in the morning and realized it's time to trim my fingernails. I know you're probably wondering where that's going. Tiger Pride, baby. Right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff. Your facial hair, your appearance was important. Whenever I hear a flying plane over Green Castle, I think it's Wabash scouting one of our practices. I'm looking in the mirror and I see a full head of hair. PMA. Well, I didn't have the Nick Mourouzis level of off the charts PMA, but I did realize that over the years, Nick showed us things that we didn't see in ourselves. And it made us believe in ourselves. And that is a true tribute to him as a coach, as a teacher. Each of these things go together. They kind of make up a mosaic of who he was. A man who lived his life with enthusiasm, consistency, commitment to excellence. And nothing, I think as Jeff mentioned, nothing was too little for him. No situation was too little for him to be bothered with. No problem, he would always help you out. And the way he lived his life, the way he treated people, were the real lessons that I've learned from him. Nick cared for everyone. It didn't matter if you were a football recruit or if you happened to see a school of music recruit somewhere on campus and he was walking. He treated them the same. He would treat a 23-year-old sports information director the same way he would treat the university president. If Nick Mourouzis was talking to you, you were the most important person at that time to him. I still remember the first Mona Bell game I worked, 1987. And I'm sure some of you remember Mona Bell Stag. This is my introduction to this day. Was it's a Thursday night before the game. And, the previous year, we had lost 24-23, a heartbreaking loss. The way the Stag was set up, you had a roaster from each school who would, kind of poke fun at the other school. But that particular night, the Wabash roaster was relentless and targeted on just attacking Nick and just trying to humiliate him. And I just remember standing in the back of the room just seething and just probably the same type of feeling that the players had in the locker room when the senior speeches are going on. I mean, you want to get out there and take care of business. And that was the year we won 33-11, got the belt back. And I will never forget that as the time that it cemented my understanding of the rivalry, but it cemented my love for Nick. I think that was an experience that, I thought we were a family, and that just is not how you treat a family. My relationship with Nick during the season, Monday meetings, we'd go into his office, talk about the previous game, talk about the upcoming opponent. And especially, it was really fun during the Mona Bell week because outside of the fact that sometimes we would be diverted we'd be on our third topic after 15 minutes, and we'd eventually get back to what we were talking about. But my favorite would be, he would be describing the Wabash in quote form like the 85 Bears. You know, I mean, he's playing them up, and then he'd get to a point, and he would just say, you know what I mean, make me sound good. And I'm like, I can assemble the words, but I can't do Nick Mourouzis speak. There's no way, I can't do that in type. And Tuesdays we had our Tiger Talk lunches. Nick was, he was so good at those, where we would, he'd bring some student athletes in and introduce them to the audience. And the thing that he always loved doing was picking out we're going to score on the fourth play of the game play. And my question to him would always be, well, if we could score on the fourth play, why wouldn't we score on the first play? And then that's when I learned about the strategy of designing a football game plan. Nick obviously knew what he was doing, but it made the Saturdays much more interesting. And Thursdays, the game plans were in, and we would go to Wendy's. And without fail, Nick would look at the menu and try to decide what he was going to get. But inevitably, we'd come back to the grilled chicken. I mean, it was always back to the grilled chicken. And during those conversations, I mean, we talked about a lot of things, but I just remember that the Wendy's napkins were kind of a canvas for him, where it would be whatever secret trick play we've got. It could be the one year it was the hitch and go for Joe Cheshire. And then one time, it was his thoughts about building out a honor society to recognize scholar athletes. He always said, we have Phi Beta Kappa to recognize student athletes in general. But, we don't have anything just for student athletes. And he took a sabbatical in 1995, 96, I believe, and he created Chi Alpha Sigma. And it is in 300 chapters across the country. It was something that started as a dream of his. Much like many other things, Nick had the ability to not only have the ideas, but he executed them. It didn't matter what it was. I mean, watching him do those things is amazing, whether it's a game plan or something like that, a live stream. I mean, who does that? Who has an idea and then says, well, we can find a way to do it? Well, Nick Mourouzis does. I mean, that was unbelievable. And forever, when I'm voting on Academic All-America selections, that's on their nomination form. And to see it on these kids from LSU to Ohio State to DePauw, it's unbelievable and truly a great legacy for him in college athletics. And I know we talked about his attention to detail. I was lucky enough to, in those early years, to sit on some of those Sunday film sessions, and just to watch him just take a kickoff and run it back 10 or 15 times. And then I would realize he's not watching the kickoff coverage, he's looking at the kicker. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, his offensive staff's never going to get home. But his attention to detail was unbelievable. And in fact, I remember one time, he's watching a Cubs game, he sees the mechanics in a pitcher, something doesn't look right, the guy's struggling, he sends him a letter. I mean, that's incredible. He was always coaching. And one of my final memories was when he took the team to Wolfsburg, Germany, and I know some of you are here. That was an excellent experience. And one of the parts of it was that it wasn't on the itinerary, but he said, "Hey, can we get some of the youth in town to have a clinic? I want to have a clinic and just introduce them to football." And of course, he had an idea, executed it, pulled it off, and you got a bunch of kids playing in Germany, playing American football now. But that wasn't the best part of the trip. The best part of the trip happened later in the week. We've got the city was hosting some sort of social event for us, and Nick is doing the Macarena. Nick was always comfortable with himself, comfortable with who he was. As I reflect back on my view of Nick's life, I realize how unrealistic it is to try to measure up to and try to be like him, but rather to spread all that he has given us and make the place better than we found it, which is what he did. I miss you, Chief. DePauw never quits. Thank you, Wags. Up next, we have a special treat. A gentleman who is a current DePauw student. He will be a junior this fall. He has a very familiar name. He's a management fellow at DePauw University, plays on the varsity soccer team, and he's known as Nick Mourouzis. Please welcome from the class of 23, young Nick.
I've never done this before, so please bear with me.
Let's go!
Hello all, and thank you for joining us. I see plenty of familiar faces, and I'm so happy to be here with you all. As Ken just said, I'm Nick Mourouzis. I'm going to be a junior at DePauw this fall. I play soccer, but I'm also hoping to play basketball at a more feminine news, most importantly, I'm Coach Nick's grandson, and as a fair warning, I call him Bapu. So if I say Bapu, that's what I'm talking about. This past year has been a profound time of growth for me, and it was sparked by the death of my Bapu. And he was my favorite man, and I have heard that apparently he's everyone in your favorite man too. When my mom broke the news to me on that Wednesday night, I was completely silent. Felt like the whole world stood still at that very moment. I was filled with a lot of sorrow and sadness that, I couldn't really function. It was a hard week for me, of course. I got a lot of texts and calls, but, didn't really fill that hole that was just made. It wasn't until the funeral that Friday that I finally came to my senses and I checked myself. And then I saw so many people that were there at the funeral that knew my Bapu and loved my Bapu and knew that my Bapu loved them. When I saw that, I was completely inspired. I didn't really know how I was going to cope with losing my grandpa, but, I know he would want me to get through it. I looked at myself as I was unmotivated, I was unresponsive and sad, and I couldn't act like that anymore. That was the wake-up call for me. I realized that all the people that were texting me, calling me, coming up to me at the funeral, they were all there for me because of everything that my grandpa had done for them. Okay. I'm not old enough to remember Coach Nick in action, but just reading and hearing everything that everybody had to say for him was, like I said, just absolutely inspiring. I know I really can't fill his shoes, but, at this point, I think I can try. I needed to take action at that moment, and the first thing I did was I texted Stevie Baker Watson, who's celebrating her 31st birthday. I texted her that week and I locked in an unpaid internship with her, which I love for my resume. I've met and I've gotten closer with some wonderful people that I found out were very close to my grandpa. Wendy Whippich, she's in here. She did a great job putting together this entire event. And then Wags, of course. Stevie also. And then some of the coaches that are here. Cohen, Huff, Interman, all you guys. Also, that week, I texted JV and Joe. We set up a little lunch together that we had one Thanksgiving. It was great. And then eventually, I think maybe a week after the funeral, Stevie mentioned to me that we'd be putting together this event. Of course, I was honored. It was a great process, and I was so happy that I was even considered to do it. And then this whole thing, setting it up, all those meetings, just heard even more stories that just made my day every day. Helped me get through whatever I needed to get through. His connections that he made with all of you came back to me. So thank you guys for that. Like I just said, I love hearing stories about my Bapu. And then I have one quick story that I mentioned in the email to all of you players. So this goes well. Everybody here knows that he was fun and energetic and down to earth. But to me, he was my grandpa. I didn't really understand everything that, he had done for all of you. So here's my story. I was 5, 6, 7, I don't really remember. But I graduated from diapers, so I was on the pull-ups. I needed them at night, so do with that information what you will. Emma and I were staying at Yaya and Bapu's house, and I needed my pull-ups. So Bapu drove out to Kroger. I think Emma was with him. And they came back, and I was sitting on the couch. And first thing I know, right when he walks in, is Yaya starts laughing at him. And I'm sitting there, totally clueless. Bapu is also clueless. And Emma starts laughing. And Bapu and I are sitting there looking around like, why are these girls laughing at us? And he reaches in the bag, pulls out a bag of pull-ups, and they're pink. And I immediately start bawling my eyes out. And Bapu looks at me, sees me crying, buries his head in his hands, and just starts making fun of me and laughing at me. So, that was my first memory of the Chief. Wasn't a great one. I eventually got my pull-ups, so I was not wearing pink pull-ups that night. Anyways, my goofy grandfather who loved me dearly would do anything for me and go and buy pull-ups that he accidentally bought me pickles. Maybe all of you know that ordinary side of him, but to me, that was my Bapu. But also, I know I'm describing him as ordinary, but hearing all your stories about him goes to show that he was not ordinary. He was not an ordinary man. He was a very extraordinary man. My Bapu was someone who I never thought I would be without, and I miss him with my whole heart. But when you love somebody, you know they're never really gone. All the stories that are shared tonight and throughout our lives about Coach Nick just affirm his legacy, and his legacy will live on because of that. Thank you all for listening. DePauw never quits, and rest in heaven, Bapu. Thank you.
Nick, thank you. We're going to have a quick announcement from Red Deets, DePauw football football coach who's got an announcement about the event that will be taking place in the fall at Honor Nick during the game.
Thanks. It's awesome to be here with you guys. And to me, as I start my head coaching career as a first normal season, minus the spring, to get a great crash course and a reminder and a sermon on how to run a football team and the impact that us as coaches have every single day. So obviously we're reporting in a little bit less than a month. So thank you everybody for the stories, to meet each of you for your support. Ongoing, obviously, Nick meant a lot to a lot of people. I got to know him as well. I never worked with him, but he was always around the office. And I heard all the same things coming. So Joe Cheshire's Butler defensive coordinator, the fourth play of the game, we were trying to score in 4. Okay, on September 11th. But the next weekend is September 18th. We're going to have a Coach Nick Memorial game. Hopefully, all of you can join us. It's against Kenyon. And Stevie and I have worked up something. We are going to wear throwback jerseys for the 1981 team. Okay? So here's the jerseys. They just came in. So Under Armour just came out with a throwback edition, which was perfect. Coach Nick gave us that gift. So we've purchased with the Tiger Club funds these jerseys to wear in honor of Coach Nick and the 1981 team, his first team. The color is really close to that mustardy stuff, which is we're really happy that it is. We are going to put the paws back on the helmet. We'll have the paws back on the helmet with the same color as this, so we'll look good for that Coach Nick Memorial game. We also are going to have Coach Nick sticker on our helmet. We're going to put the Chief right there on the front, so everybody will. So our older guys know of Coach Nick. He helped out. 2018 was the last year he really helped out a lot. And so some of those guys are still around, but it's being part of this weekend. It's really my duty and my honor to pass the legacy of who Coach Nick was and is, and his living memory will continue on. Obviously, we still play on Coach Nick Mourouzis Field, and hopefully more and more things will get named in honor of Nick as we continue our legacy forward. So I'm very honored to have known Coach Nick and to be under his tutelage when he'd come into my office every week and let me know how to coach the wide receivers or what to play and what we were missing quite from the offense. So that was always very much welcome, and he's always deep in our hearts. We still break every team meeting down with Tiger Pride, and that's something that Nick really brought, Coach Lynch really instilled. And we really kept Coach Nick close through Coach Lynch, and obviously Coach Nick and Coach Leonard are two of my big mentors. So we'll keep the Coach Nick legacy alive, the Chief legacy alive, and thank you for a great night. And we're going to do our best this season. We're going to keep that bell in Greencastle. Unfortunately, we got to go up to Crawfordsville to defend our bell, but we'll do it proudly, happily. And thank you guys for all your support throughout the season. We'd love to have you back. You guys are huge in recruiting. Just talking positively about your program and our experience is going to help the next generation of Tigers. So, Tiger Pride.
Thank you, Coach. All right, we have one more speaker, and I'm going to wrap up my remarks here. And after that speaker, Stevie is going to wrap up the program for us. And we're all going to sing happy birthday. She doesn't know that. That's just shaking her head. I just, first of all, want to thank the committee for asking me to do this. I love Nick. I'd say like a father, but toward the end of his life, I felt like he was more of a brother. The kidding, the teasing, and you know, as my relationship with this place was changing, he was so supportive of me and reminding me at times when I was needing to be reminded of good things, that my work was valuable. That, you know, he was
he was the champion of kindness. And I just, the way he made you feel that thing inside of you that you knew was there, but he could see it and shine it up and put it in front of you and say, look at it, Chief. You're that person. It was so amazing. So Marilyn, the family, I love you guys. And I love you, Marilyn. And I'm so sad we're here tonight. But it's so joyous to think of a room with this kind of love in it. Most human beings don't get to the finish line and have these laughs and have these sharings. And everybody in this room feels intimately close to Nick. He had that kind of reach and that kind of a touch. So that's power, and that's wonderful. One of the things that was really lucky about my coming back to DePauw was Nick retired in 2003, and he was still helping out with the team, but often we'd stand together on the sideline of the Mona and Bell games. And which is always a treat, because we'd be strategizing. It was like, I know what I'm talking about. But I can remember the worst, and I'm sorry to bring up bad games. The 2010 game was the year we were 9-0 going into that game, and we were already in the playoffs, and it was going to be great. I like to joke that our team bus is still in a parallel universe looking for a parking spot. We never showed up, and it was like 23-0 at halftime. I think we'd been across the 50 once. So Nick and I walked to the bathroom at Walleyes, which is in the bowels of their athletic center, which is not a fun place to enter to begin with, especially when you're down 23-0. But the two of us in this cavernous men's room, standing at the urinal side by side, more than you want to know where you're at. But I turned to him and I said, "Onside kick, Chief." And then he got that look that Nick would get. His face just lit up. He's like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. We can't move the ball. We got to put some energy, some mojo out there. Give it a shot. What if we lose by 50? We're going to lose anyway." But I just remember those moments with him. And this shot here, I was right with him on the sideline. This was a key moment in the 2019 game, which is his last Mona and Bell game, and one of the most magical in the history of the series. It's almost fitting. But and Linda, did you take that photo?
I took one.
Yeah, I think I was trying to remember who it was, but Nick and I hugged, and then we kind of turned, and I remember that this photo was taken, and I just love this photo because he's a kid. He's a big kid, and yet a father and a friend and a confidant and a supporter and someone we love. The other words on this tombstone that I want to leave with, and I'm going to get off the stage here: enthusiasm, encouragement, love, hard work, motivation. Nick was a lot of things, but Jeff, you're right. It boiled down to love, and what a man. So thank you for letting me be part of this. I'm going to relinquish the stage now to Nick's son, Ted Mourouzis, for his remarks. Ted.
So when you're going last in a lineup like this, I guess you have to call an audible sometimes. Fortunately, I called a check with me here, so I know I'm going to be successful because I'm going to have to change my remarks because so many of you hit the nail on the head. I brought with me, these are not my notes for my speech. This is my to-do list. So I'm going to talk about that this afternoon. I know many of you have heard my father mention in his remarks that he's an emotional Greek, and I will do my best. And I used to smile at that because I'm rather stoic Greek, but I think I might have a more difficult time with that this evening. So I was asked by Scott to speak on behalf of the family, and I want to introduce our family, who many of you know, but I'll do that quickly. I want to tell one story that I don't think I think the only person in the room who might have been there, aside from my family, was only here yesterday evening, so it'll be a new story for you. I think a good Coach Nick story. I'm going to share one photo, which frankly, in a sense, photo and words, Ken, you've kind of already shared. And then I have a quick soundbite, and then I will say those thank yous. So first of all, in terms of introductions, many of you knew my father's brother, George. And you might have wondered, where is George? Is George still with us? George is still with us, but he's not in very good health and couldn't be here today. But we're going to see you next weekend and look forward to sharing this with him. He would have loved to have been here, and I'm sure he's going to love to hear about it. So, my wife Susan is here. Our kids, Jack, Emma, and of course Nick. My sister Pam, her husband Matt, and daughter Isla are here. And of course my mom, Marilyn, or Betha, was her Greek name growing up. Some of the remarks have been touched on. I'll just say my parents were married for 61 years and 1 month. But one other thing on the front of the memorial stone was that they were married 61 years and 1 month, but they were friends since childhood. And as my mom has gone through her memory books and her photos and her articles, it's pretty clear that she had a crush on him that predated high school. So it went back a very long way. On to the story. So as many of you know, my father had a stroke in late November 2017. But just prior to that was the celebration of IU's 50th Rose Bowl team. So that was an event he was really looking forward to. Frankly, there were not many coaches left from that team. 50 years later, there was a young coach on that staff. And two things I want to share. One is that one of his former players came to town and he went out golfing with him and got his second hole-in-one. So he was something he was really excited about. The reason I tell this story, and the second part of it is that, frankly, unfortunately, after the stroke, he didn't remember that. He didn't remember the Rose Bowl reunion, and he didn't remember the hole-in-one. But let me tell you, he was really excited about it, and he would have loved to have shared those moments with all of you. As far as the Rose Bowl story, they had a nice gathering mid-November after one of the games, and had a banquet for the team and the cheerleaders and the training staff and the coaching staff and the administrators. About 300 people in the room, and part of the ceremony was after dinner. They sort of cleared an aisle down the middle of the room and had folks who were there in 1967, January 1st, 1968, stand in the back of the room, and they called their names. And one at a time, they started with the support staff, and then they went through all the players, and then they got the coaches. But while they were calling the players, and everybody at the designated time would walk, in a dignified manner up to the front of the room to a nice round of applause. And my father's with their family, they were watching this, and he starts to get this smile on his face, and he starts to get this idea. And he came over and he's like, I got this idea. I'm going to try. I'm going to do it. So he goes to the back of the room, and when they call his name, there's 80-year-old Coach Nick breaks into a trot, high-fiving people as he goes down through the room, and a roar went up from the room, after hearing all those names. But that was a Coach Nick story, right? He was bringing life, bringing joy, and it was a great memory, and I knew it was one you would appreciate. The other thing I wanted to touch on was something that, frankly, Ken and Tony touched on a little bit about the memorial stone. Tony spoke to what's on the front of that stone. Ken just spoke to what's on the back. And coincidentally, in those words, Ken read off the 5 words that are on there, and you can pick a lot from my dad. But the words that's at the top, as Jeff flagged, is love. And as I get to the thank yous here in a moment, that's really, I think, the key thing. The soundbite that I wanted to share was one that my sister picked up on, and sort of a fitting bit of inside information. The morning, the night, 3 a.m., 2 a.m., after my father passed away, I brought my mother to see him in the nursing facility where he passed. and we're driving home, on the back roads, driving back to Greencastle from Avon, and had the radio on, and just kind of sitting in silence, but had the radio on. And the song "The Eye of the Tiger" was played at 2:30 in the morning, and it was really very fitting. So that's the soundbite. As far as the thank yous, we're very grateful to the university for moving this event forward. Thank you to Stevie and Scott and Wendy and Leslie and the other DPU staff. Thank you to Dr. White for supporting this event, Alan Hill. Thank you to the panelists, Ken, Tony, JV, Jeff. Really appreciate your words, Bill, and of course my son Nick. I think you said a lot of things that were great for us to hear. The panelists this afternoon, I love, just like my son Nick, I love hearing their stories, and they were awesome. And frankly, we probably only heard 20 or 30% of them in the last day or two. Maybe we're talking about them at other times, but they're great and a lot of fun to hear. I want to thank the organizing committee, Todd Poole and John Stevens as co-chairs. Very grateful to you. Friends and family who are here this evening, thank you very much. And of course, former players and coaches. As you know, my dad is proud of what you all accomplished on the field. But the reality is he was more proud of what you accomplished off of it. Whether it was as students, as husbands, as fathers, as professionals, as teachers, as coaches, as community or business leaders, that's what he was most proud of. He was proud that you are the types of people who would come together from across the country to be supportive of our family at a time like this, and to be supportive of each other. He would be proud and humbled by all that we have done for him. Our family is very thankful that you keep his memory alive by carrying a piece of him in you and in your actions. He lived a great life, very full, and as you know, he had a ton of energy and got lived every bit of his life at full speed. He was a very bright light, and as Jeff pointed out, the ultimate source of that light was love. There's lots of love here this weekend and here tonight, and on behalf of the Mourouzis family, we say thank you for that love and for the terrific display of Tiger Pride. Thank you all very much.
My goodness, what a weekend. I am so grateful that we're able to be together today as friends and family and teammates. I look forward to you all coming back to campus whenever you're free, but hopefully, certainly on September 18th for that Nick Mourouzis Memorial Game. Brett has given you an idea of what we've got during the game. After the game, we'll also be hosting a celebration service that day as well for folks. It is so wonderful that the Mourouzis family has shared Nick and themselves with us over all of these years. Nick loved us all. We loved him tenfold, and he would give us 100 back into these spaces. Throughout the room, you see memorabilia from the Mourouzis home. It's legendary when you came over to see the captain's plaques. Those are over to my right over here. There's other memorabilia over here to the left. The Mourouzis family has graciously put that out there for you all to be able to share in that love with Nick. I'd ask that you're a good teammate, though. Please take a single item if it speaks to you. Don't walk out with armfuls full of stuff, but we want you to continue loving Coach Nick in your own homes and in your office. Now, Afterwards, I invite you all to perhaps meander over to Moore's Bar and spend some more time with everyone. But I also have a parting gift for all of you that you can get when you walk out the door. So, others have said this, that it was fitting that the last game that was on the sideline was the 2019 Mona Bell game. He was so excited. Everyone loves that photo. He's in our hearts and our minds. And we're going to let you take home Nick from that game as well. It's become sort of a tradition for us, I think, this bobblehead thing. But this is a replica of Nick from that final game, that final moment. You'll even see his Mona Bell credential on him in this. So on your way out, please give each other hugs, kisses, say it's not we're gonna, goodbye, but we're gonna just see you later. Pick one up, please, on your way out the door. I'll make sure that your teammates get others when they come back for that September 18th. But please just continue to love, honor, and cherish each other as we know Coach Nick would have wanted us to do. Have a wonderful evening. Godspeed to you all, and rest in heaven, Coach Chief.